This is French Horn Rebellion. You're listening to Recess with Spinelli.
You are listening to Recess with Spinelli, WSPN 91.1 FM. And today we are here at the Upstate Concert Hall in Clifton Park with Robert of French Horn Rebellion from Brooklyn, New York. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you guys put on what would be one of the most interactive shows I've seen with an audience in quite a long time. Is this something, this interaction with your fans, is this something you learned over time performing, or did you guys just go, start from the get-go with that energy?
Well, we've had the opportunity to play with a lot of great artists over the years. We've been opening for like Yell or MGMT or Cut Copy, Hot Chip, blah, 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 like a lot of stuff. So we've kind of soaked up some of the really good things that we liked about what they were doing and put them into our show. So what you see now is the result of years of touring. I mean, we've been on tour for almost, we've been a band for almost 7 years and have been on tour maybe three months out of the year on average. So some years the whole year and some years much less. But pick up what works and what doesn't work. Now,
what are some ways you try to interact with the audience? What are some things you look for to engage them? Well,
the band French Horn Rebellion is all about getting out of your comfort zone and having a fun time. And the way we like to say it is just French horns are not supposed to be prancing around playing at volume 11 on a stage, fusion, funk, improvised solos. You're not supposed to do that, and so that's the idea, is that you're encouraging people to do something that maybe they wouldn't normally do, which is like to jump around or put their hands in the air or dance like they're in the marching band or the orchestra. Or it's just like we don't care about being weird. We're cool being weird, and we're happy about it actually, and we're gonna celebrate because everybody truly is weird, deep down. We're all individuals, so it's really about embracing your individuality.
The only band I can think of in which a French horn is used besides you guys is The Who with their album Tommy. Now, would you say, that was quite a long time ago though. Yeah. Are you the only one really using a French horn nowadays? I can't think of anybody else.
Well, yes. Not a lot of people use French horn. I don't know why anybody would do this. It's such a weird thing because I grew up playing horn because my oldest brother was a really big classical music fan, and when he was in high school, he didn't feel like he was really that great at horn. He wished that he was better, so he had me start when I was like 8 years old, which is way before everybody else. And so I got to middle school, and then I went to the local orchestra, like the local youth orchestra, Milwaukee Youth Symphony Orchestra. I had 2-3 years on everybody else, so all of a sudden I was like first chair in this, first chair in that, and I just went with it. I love playing horn. I love being in the orchestra. I love making music. But I always knew that there was something more that I wanted to do, which was that I wanted to be a creative person, coming up with ideas and writing music. And so I don't think that those two things normally really go together. So I think that's why it's such a unique project, especially because my brother, the other member of the group, David, who doesn't tour anymore because he's a studio guy, so he's strictly in the studio and doesn't perform. And he is a very, very deep production guy. So having one older brother who is really a French horn classical guy, and then another older brother who is completely into production and being like the guy on the mixing board, that's part of how it all came to be.
How come you didn't go down the potential other track of, I guess, being a composer of classical music, if that's what you were trained in? Well,
the classical music world, I think, I didn't grow up listening to contemporary music. Like, I didn't grow up like listening to 12-tone. I grew up listening to Beethoven or Mozart, but I also grew up listening to the Beatles and the Beach Boys. And I think that we all, in our generation of people, much more we identify more with music, with a band, with instruments, like or even electronic music, just like songs, not like long format, highbrow stuff, So that's why we didn't compose, is because we didn't want to do that. We want to do things that we like, that make us dance and make us feel happy and make us feel transcendent, that we're really just having a great time with our friends and encouraging other people not to be afraid of, who they are, because I think sometimes, a lot of us were geeks in high school, or a lot of us were geeks in college, or still are geeks, and maybe feel a little weird about that, or feel like people never understood you. And it's like, well, that's actually really cool, and it's awesome. And so just have fun with it, and it's positive, a lot of positivity.
Now, what are some skills or some lessons you took away, though, through all those years learning French horn, through classical training, playing in the orchestras?
Horns have great lines, like on Brahms or Beethoven or Strauss, like very flowing, beautiful, big lines. And those lines are very common in popular music, like songs where you have a verse or chorus, and they rely on big melodies. So I think like being a horn player has a lot to do with that. Being able to hear those melodies, also inner harmonies and counterpoint, that kind of thing. With a horn, you get all of it. It's one of the only instruments that does get all of it, because we play during the loud parts with the brass, and then we also play the lyrical parts with the woodwinds.
Now, with so many years of classical training, do you think that it's possible for actual instruments, analog sound, if you will, to be replaced by electronic technology such as computers with music nowadays?
When you have a sampler or a piece of technology like Ableton or Logic or a computer that has the ability to sample sounds, you can sample a horn. So you can sample somebody playing horn and turn it into a new instrument completely. The possibilities are literally infinite. Whereas on horn, you're trying to strive for this one sound. That's not really very creative. Everybody's trying to get the most beautiful sound, that's the most in tune, that's the most in rhythm. But in this world, it's not about that. It's about like how do you play with rhythm, actually, right? Like how the groove is not a metronome. The groove exists in between the beats. So how do you make a groove? How do you make a blues note, for example? A blue note is not it's not a diatonic pitch. It's not something that's like supposed to sound good. It's a quarter tone. It's in between pitches. And so like thinking from a classical world where you're like playing like anything written down like Strauss or something outside of contemporary music, those things just don't exist, but you do them naturally actually when you're making music. So I think that in a lot of ways playing horn on its own is a very limiting experience, because you only have so many pitches you can play, and you only have so many sounds you can create, whereas with the computer you can have infinite possibility. The summer after my freshman year of college, I had the ability and opportunity to produce with my brother. I was the assistant, MGMT's EP, Time to Pretend. And that was the first people that we'd ever worked with that I'd ever seen that didn't use guitars or bass in a recording setting. They were all synthesizers, and it was all done on Reason. And it like completely blew my mind, because I was like, wow, I can do that because I play keyboard. I can be in my room like jamming out. I don't need horns or whatever.
Now, I understand you have a new EP coming out. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, for sure. We got a new EP coming out. It's coming out this Friday. This will probably air after it comes out, so maybe it came out November 6th. It's the first music that we've put out in over a year and a half. So our second record wrapped up at the end of April 2014, and then we released a compilation of all the we did a series of single releases from the end of 2012 to the middle of 2014. Every like 2 months we had a new single, and so we put that all on a compilation, which is our second record called Next Jack Swing Part 1, and that came out about a year ago. And then so since then we've been off tour for the most part, and just in the Beat Lab figuring out what to do and how to make music that we want, like new stuff. There's a lot of like diverse influences. We had a lot of great collaborators on it, and I would say there's a bunch of great songs on it. We've got some really good rhythms, some really funky stuff, and I think it'll make you dance. So. Well,
is there anything else that you would like to add? Any final thoughts about your band, or just anything that comes to mind, really?
Well, I think the key is just gotta have fun with what you're doing. It doesn't have to be playing horn on a stage. It doesn't have to be like making dance music on a computer. If it's you hanging out, working at the office, or doing something, maybe a job that you don't like, or maybe doing something that isn't quite exactly what you want to be doing, the band is saying you can have the confidence, like you can do it. You can do what you want to do. It's not impossible. It's really true. It's just you have to start very slowly and make make it step by step, and it will happen.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Recess with Spinelli, WSPN 91.1 FM, and we have been speaking to Robert from French Horn Rebellion.